Welcome. I'm Deborah Scheck and a Chevy Chase at Home board member. As you may know, Chevy Chase at Home engages adults 55 and over in social, educational, and educational programming, both in person and virtually like today. We also provide volunteer services to older adults who need assistance to remain at home, including rides, tech support, friendly visits, and minor household chores. We're so glad to have everyone join us this afternoon for our speaker series. And now I'll introduce our speaker for today. Kathleen McGuinness is a fourth-generation Washingtonian, a certified dementia practitioner, and certified end-of-life specialist. She started her career as an executive with World Airlines and worked there for 20 years. She then served as a senior leader of the Cayman Island Department of Tourism for 14 years. She resigned from that role to care for her parents for 5 years while they aged in place in Chevy Chase. Her husband became ill shortly thereafter with Supranuclear Palsy and FTD, and Kathleen cared for him for 5 years before he passed. Kathleen re-entered the workforce as a director of community relations for SmithLife Homecare in early 2018. She served on the board of directors of Chevy Chase at Home for 5 years. She has 2 grown children who were raised in Chevy Chase and Potomac. In this talk, Kathleen will share how she learned to use basic technology to assist her in caring for her aging parents and later her husband. She will present technologies for reducing repetitive questions, being in 2 places at once, meltdowns, wandering, using simple fixes found online, apps, and Alexa. If you have questions during this presentation, feel free to put them in the chat and we'll try to get to all the questions. Kathleen?
Thank you, Deborah. Afternoon, everyone. Nice to see everybody on this beautiful spring day. Thank you for inviting me into your living room or wherever you are today. As Deborah mentioned, I've been on the board of directors for Chevy Chase at Home Village for, I think, a little over 5 years. And it was my first step in kind of reinvestigating moving back to Chevy Chase after I had lived in Potomac for 35 years. My son was baptized at Little Blessed Sacrament at the Circle, but I kept having to rent children. I couldn't find any kids for them to play with, so I moved to Potomac, and there were lots of them out there. Anyways, I'm back here now, and so the story today, presentation today, is an informal sharing about some tech products that I used when caring for family members, my mom, my dad, and my husband. And many of them, honestly, I was just kind of desperate at times for some support, even though I am in the home care business now. When I started with my parents, I was not. So I learned through trial and error, lots of mistakes. And these 4 up here, caringbridge.org, Smart Souls, your Apple Watch, and Alexa Google Assistant were my constant companions for the last 5, 6, 7 years, and some of them still are, because I turns out I like them. So this isn't a course or class, but if you want extra credit, you can get that by utilizing the internet for things that you need. Often when my husband was sent home from the hospital, I had questions that either they didn't tell me about or I didn't hear it. You know, WikiHow and YouTube are fabulous for anything you need to know, medical, in your home, whatever. Just yesterday, I have a pen where I give myself a shot in my stomach. And yesterday was the first time I had to do it myself. And I went, I don't remember what they told me. So I went to YouTube and there were all these videos there of how to do it. So I did it. Anyways, more. So that's a little bit about my bio, which I don't need to tell you again. But this is a picture of my father, who was my first care person. Daddy needed a Hoyer lift to get in and out of bed for the last 2 years of his life. We could no longer care for him at home. He was in a local nursing facility here in Bethesda. He was a disabled veteran. And once he needed the Hoyer lift, which many people can have in their homes, you just need space to be able to pick up the person, motor them around, get into the wheelchair, and then out of the room. My house had too many stairs and it was just above my pay grade to take care of Daddy at that point. The person on the bottom here is my husband, Joe McGuinness. Many of you know him. He came to many of our events at Chevy Chase at Home. And that was his buddy, Bill Clinton, who was a classmate at Georgetown. So he was a very loyal Georgetown Hoya. And I'll tell you more about all those people. Again, this is, just a little bit of a personal story. As I said, I'm a 4th generation Washingtonian. This is my mom who passed away, but I was caring for her. She was Miss Washington, D.C. Look at her. She was a hottie. Back in the 40s, Daddy was a very decorated World War II veteran and had a 21-gun salute when he was buried at Arlington National Cemetery. And this is my husband, Joe, who passed away in 2020, just a couple months into COVID. And this was a bench that I had dedicated to him on the Georgetown campus. Some of you may have known him through his restaurant, Chadwick's, here in Friendship Heights, which he owned for about 30 years. Certainly cut down on my cooking. So the first app that I'm going to mention, which is an app that you have on your phone or you use on your desktop, is caringbridge.org. Joe was a member or had 9 brothers and sisters. So just keeping everybody in the loop could be a full-time job, not to mention I worked. My mother and father, while caring for them, my brother conveniently lived in Paris. So he just chimed in for Monday morning quarterback a lot of the time, but I could use this Caring Bridge app at the time when everybody was doing faxes and things. I needed his approval on procedures we would do for my dad. And I found this to be the easiest, simplest process to communicate with many people, to develop a food train, to ask for help when I needed, if I would be out of town for a week and I was going to solicit friends and family to go visit my father or Joe or whomever. It's a very simple, private, family sharing website that's a nonprofit that has 2.4 billion visitors, site visits. So it's really, I think, excellent. You can design, even if you're not very technically savvy, you can design a family website in about 3 minutes. I think that this is especially helpful when there is a family crisis. You have a mom, a dad, or a husband who goes into the hospital unexpectedly, and whomever is in charge all of a sudden has the responsibility or wants to let everybody know that this or that is happening. And it's just communicating with everybody. I found this streamlined it significantly. So you can share news and updates with everyone at the same time. It's a private, ad-free space. You get emotional strength, I did, and support. I could put Joe had 9 brothers and sisters, as I mentioned, and some were in Hawaii, people all over the world, his classmates that he kept in touch with. They would just send me an email and I would add them to this site, and they would know, you know, Joe was in the hospital last Tuesday. He's at Sibley if you want to go visit, without me having to tell everybody. And before, group emails became a lot easier as they are now. You can put an outreach into your local community, your friends and family, through caringbridge.org. For instance, Joe had Parkinson's and he needed a spotter for his weekly exercise class. So that means he has to have somebody sit in the chair right next to him every Thursday at 1 o'clock. I couldn't do it every Thursday because, again, I work still. So I would put it out on this caringbridge.org and I would get responses. I can do the first week, second week, third week. It was really, I thought, pretty fabulous. So that's caringbridge.org. It is available for free download on iPhone, on an Android, and you can also have it on your desktop. And if you're thinking of questions, you can ask me questions, just throw them up in the chat and I'll either try to address them now or later. The next one that I found, many people with Alzheimer's have a tendency to wander. Also people with, like Joe, who had frontal temporal dementia, which causes behavioral changes and sort of increased impulsivity. Impulsivity would act out in Joe when I would leave the house and I would say, please stay in that chair. Don't leave. Don't go anywhere. I would leave the house and sure enough, Joe would get up and down the hall he would go and out of our building. And even though he wasn't capable of walking too far in the later stages, in the early stages, he would just get on his walker and could be found on River Road, going to the toy store there to get a gift for one of his grandchildren. So he knew his grandchild was having a birthday, but he really didn't get that it was unwise to motor down River Road by himself. These GPS insoles, as some of you may or may not know, go in a shoe like a arch support, and they're trackers. You could track it on your phone. They're a little pricey, but you know, it just depends on your budget. I'm going to show you other ways to sort of help keep track via technology of your loved one who may just not be trackable sometimes. So these GPS tracking insoles, I think I have a price here. Yeah, they're about $350. But the good news is that many people with Alzheimer's or other forms of dementia, they don't like a wearable. They don't want to put a wearable around their neck. Sometimes Joe would take his watch off. Sometimes, you know, I could track him through his phone, but I had multiple devices so that I could literally keep track of him. Once it became too challenging and he had a bad fall and broke his back, then he went to assisted living. And then that was a different story. So I found that these GPS tracking insoles were helpful. They are good for Apple or an Android. And I will say also that they do not take the place of proper supervision and vigilance. You cannot count on any of these products that I'm going to talk with you about to do the job of a human sitting next to somebody who no longer has judgment to take care of themselves. So they're simply additions. I found out through experience that I didn't want to have, that my husband was no longer capable of good judgment. One day he was, and the next day he wasn't. So I also wanted to let you know that veterans and law enforcement get $25 off, and you just email this provider, and you get a discount. So the next product that I tried, which I thought was really effective, was the Apple Watch. Again, I made mistakes with the Apple Watch. You can buy an Apple Watch that doesn't have GPS, and I didn't know that. And that's what I bought the first time, but I took it back. And then I bought the Apple Watch that has GPS so I could track Joe. It has a tracking and falling assistant in the Apple Watch. You can see on the face of this watch on your screen here, where it says, it looks like you've taken a hard fall. And then you have two options: the person that fell, which is to hit that SOS, emergency SOS, or I fell, but I'm okay. So the first time I saw this tracker, the GPS part of it, Joe was in the middle of Connecticut Avenue. He had walked out of his assisted living home and was crossing the street on Connecticut Avenue. I couldn't understand why my phone was telling me he was there when he should not be there. Anyways, I did SOS. He was found, 911. Again, that's not supposed to happen, but that's what happens in my life. The other thing I liked about the Apple Watch, which came along too late for my mother, which had a blood oxygen monitor. My mother always had one of these little oxygen monitor things on her finger because she had COPD. So this is in the Apple Watch. It's also capable of detecting cardiac abnormalities, and the fall detection, which really is a great thing for anyone who's fully coherent and competent to have in your own home. There has been a time or two where I've fallen off a step ladder and been kind of stunned. I'm not getting on step ladders anymore, but and I'm not so sure I would have been able to think of all the things I needed to do to get help. So I have an Apple Watch now that has a fall detector on it because I live alone. These are some other low-tech things that I found made my life easier. And see this little Wemo thing here, W-E-M-O? This is a little outlet that you can order from Amazon. It's about $12, and it makes products in your house smart products. Like I could put this Wemo thing next to my bed lamp on Joe's side of the bed, and then I could tell Alexa, turn off the lamp, and boom, it would turn off the lamp on his side of the bed. So I didn't have to get up and go around and turn it off. So it's very simple. You plug it in, you plug whatever you want to be activated by a voice command, you do need another product like an Alexa, which I'm going to talk to you about in a minute. You can also have smart locks so that if you're in a private home and you're already upstairs in bed, you can have Alexa check and make sure that your front door is locked. My son, who's in the 30-something, has everything remote technology connected. That man does not lift, well, he opens up the refrigerator door, but I'm sure Alexa will be able to do that at some point. It's really just fascinating. All the lights, doors, windows, you name it, music, TV, etc. This is my experience in caring for my family, what I felt I needed to do, and they were simple, basic 101 tools. My mother had 2 homes in Florida and a home here in Chevy Chase, a condo. And once mother became ill and daddy became ill, I became their bill payer. I also had to keep track of my own house and my own bills. So I used Quicken to sort of make sure I paid their insurance bills, made sure I did all the things that I needed to do, not relying on my own memory, which is pretty good some days and other days not so swell. So it's a simple program that you buy. I have no really technology training. I have no bookkeeping training. It's just kind of a checkbook, like you do your check register. And if you don't want to do something like this, I wanted to do it myself. There are lots of money managers, daily money managers in this area. I can recommend several who will help you with these tasks. If you and your husband, for instance, are, just kind of overwhelmed by the paper process, your insurance, your everything, for me, this was a way to simplify it for me. Again, you can always hire somebody in the area to do that. Are you showing somebody's asking, or the one Joe is wearing? I mean, I have a question here. Are you showing your Apple Watch or the one Joe is wearing? Do you both wear one? Okay, so Joe wore one. I did not, to answer your question, Fran. Joe had an Apple Watch on. I did not have an Apple Watch. And the application was also on my phone, the location finder. So I could see where he was, where he had fallen on my phone. You do have to have a smartphone. Let's see. Next. Low-tech sport. These were things that I did, again, for myself. Joe and Daddy did not like to use a walker. They hated them. So initially, for my father and for Joe, I got trekking poles at REI. They helped him stabilize, walking, wherever he walked, and they were a good starter process. After he fell enough, he finally acquiesced and used a walker, but it was a daily struggle. And often he would forget that he couldn't walk well without a walker. So that was, he required a lot of checking on, let's put it that way. Any of you out there that are moms and know, when you have a kid in the house, a 2-year-old or whatever, you got to watch them all the time. And that's what I found with a dementia person. Even though they're in a large body, the thought process has been taken from them. The other thing I did was I took a picture of Joe's medications. daddy's medications, mother's medications. I just lined them all up like this. I minimized it. I printed it. I stuck it in the back of my phone. And I also put it on the red alert card that goes on a refrigerator. I also printed it and put in my wallet because I found information shared from hospital systems to nursing homes to rehabs gets mistranslated frequently. Dosages are wrong, medications are wrong. So it pays to have a check and balance for your loved one because it just happened more often than you would care to know about. It also happened that Joe, when we would travel, he ended up in the hospital in Florida. He was in the hospital in Virginia. He was in the hospital in New Jersey. And then, of course, my favorite here, Sibley. So I did find out by constantly checking with his general practitioner, who happened to be a concierge doctor, that he was on 2 doses of blood pressure medication, 2 different names. Nobody noticed for a whole year. He was taking double doses of blood pressure medication. And then I took this picture and took it into his concierge doctor, and he went, "Why does he take this and this?" And I went, "I don't know." Ooh. Anyways, so checks and balances I found really important when caring for somebody. I didn't take any medications. I didn't know the difference at the time. So these are my favorites. These are smart digital assistants for caregiving and or aging in place, solo aging in place. Siri, which of course is on your phone, is an assistant that you have with you wherever you go. All you do is press a button and you talk to your artificial intelligence assistant. And it's with you everywhere. And anybody that's got a smartphone has one in their phone. Alexa and Google are very similar products. They both essentially do the same thing, except, oops, there goes my Alexa. She heard her name. Alexa was first in the marketplace. So kind of like the Model T Ford, it was the first car in the marketplace. So it gained the most market share for the first year and a half. And the Google product, which is the same assistant, has just really never caught up. So the Echo Show, which you can have through Alexa or your Google, is a visual call. It's like FaceTime, it's like Skype. It's just another vehicle for being able to see, for me, the person I'm caring for without essentially their cooperation. In my husband's case, it's because he would not pick up the phone. He generally had it shut off. And when he was in an assisted living facility, there was no phone in the room. So most people, there are hundreds and hundreds of millions of these products out there in people's homes. So most everybody knows about them these days. They live in the cloud, meaning they're constantly being updated. They're constantly getting smarter, and they're constantly being educated by what you tell them. They also are being used in many facilities now and have become HIPAA compliant. Many administrators and doctors use them to translate notes to other documents. So what I needed was a visual clue. I often would call Joe in his assisted living nursing home after he broke his back. He always said he was fine, but I could tell from his face if he's sweating, he had sepsis at one point, and I just took one look at him and I went, oh my goodness, something's really wrong with him. But you can't always get those cues verbally. Another thing that I found was just great for me, whether it was my mother, my dad. When my father was in a nursing home, I could program his Alexa on my phone to read to him at 2 o'clock on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, days I could not go visit. It would read to him for an hour, and it was comforting to me to know that something was being done to engage him when I couldn't do it. I also found that for Joe, when he was living in assisted living after his injury, getting treatments, there was no phone in his room, and I could not get him to turn his phone on. So my Alexa could talk to his Alexa in his room. I just programmed my Alexa on my phone. Tell Joe 3 p.m. today, Kathleen is coming to visit. Don't leave the room. And that's exactly what she would say. Another way I could sort of be with him without being there would be program the Alexa in his room to play doo-wop music every night at 8 o'clock, from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock while he's going to sleep. He could hear his favorite music, and then it would auto shut off. So it was really pretty easy to do. I was determined to be able to nag him long distance, whether that was in the next house or in another facility. For those of you who have Alexa on one floor upstairs and another floor downstairs, if you have a family member who is bedridden, do a hip replacement, whatever, you can talk to them upstairs and tell them, I'm coming upstairs with dinner. It can be used in home, just like an intercom system, if you don't have an intercom system. As a personal assistant, I love them for helping me remember all the things that I need to remember when you're caring for somebody else. They can call you an Uber. The repetitive asking, which I found challenging, particularly with my father when I would visit with him and he would say, what time is it? What time is it? What time is it? What time is it? I go, Daddy, if you ask me one more time what time it is, I'm going to get hostile. Not that I don't love Daddy, it's just the repetitive, they just don't know. So I would divert Dad to Alexa, and the same with Joe. What time is the Georgetown basketball game on? 6 o'clock. What time is the game on? 6 o'clock. These repetitive questions that would come up because they can't remember would just become frustrating. I have a lot of patience, but it can be stretched at times. Reminders, medication reminders, reading a book to your loved one, music, there's thousands of tasks that these smart devices can do. I know some people are concerned that they're listening all of the time. There is a mute button on the top, so you can mute it. So it's not listening all the time, only listening when you want it to. But that's a fact. You should not put any financial banking information on your Alexa or your Google Assistant at all, ever. So this was something I talked about a moment ago for the drop-in feature where you can use Alexa as a intercom system. The part that I have always, and I still like about Alexa, was that it's hands-free. yes, I can set a timer on my microwave, or yes, I can set a timer on my phone, but all I have to do is go to the kitchen and set a timer to remind me to water the plants Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday, or whatever. And I don't have to think to do it. For those of you with arthritic hands, it is hands-free. For those of you who speak multiple languages, Alexa, Google Assistant can speak to your loved one in whatever language you want. It's about 50 of them that Alexa can speak in. Let's see, I think that's it for that one. So questions you may have regarding an Alexa or a Google Assistant in your home are, do you have to have Wi-Fi in the home? Yes, you do. Are there monthly charges for the Alexa or Google device? No, there are not. It's a one-time purchase fee. However, if you want to have specific music, like Apple Music is $9.99 a month, that way I could listen to specific doo-wop songs that Joe McGuinness would like to listen to. Otherwise, you kind of get whatever genre they have through Amazon Music. Pretty extensive, millions of songs, but I wanted to listen to what I wanted to listen to. So I just, Alexa knows that I have a subscription to Apple Music. Alexa knows I have a subscription to many other products, and they're all integrated and connected. Do you have to have a desktop or a smartphone to utilize these products? Yes, you do. Money. For those of us out there who didn't plan on saving a bucket of money for home care, I strongly encourage everyone to get support, emotional support, physical support. I created many, many different short-term programs as a result of needs that I had. SmithLife Homecare has a great 5-hour program for $145 that would take my husband to the doctor, get his catheter changed, bring him back. 5 hours, that's it. Boom, I'm done with care. If I asked either one of my children to do that, it would cost me $175 and a set of tires. That's because they're millennials. Just kidding, but it's been a great program for many people who just need short-term help. This program here that I'm talking about is available to you in Montgomery County. Many people don't know about it, but it is fabulous. I used it myself to pay for care. It's ARC Respite Montgomery County. If you are 60 plus, and you are caring for a family member, a brother, a sister, a spouse, a son, a daughter in the same household, ARC Respite in Montgomery County will help you with short-term care. ARC Respite will pay up to 40 hours a month. It's about $1,000. A little bit more than $1,000 for up to 3 months. It's not my program. It's just a public service through Montgomery County. ARC Respite through Montgomery County is a nonprofit. It administers government funds. You cannot make too much money. You cannot have too much money, or you cannot have too little money. You don't pay taxes. It's simply a benefit to encourage people to help others age in place. So you can choose the respite care. Actually, it was for me to get a break for caring for, in my case, my spouse. While I cared for my mother in Montgomery County, she did not live with me, so that does not qualify. You must live in the same house. It goes from fiscal year July 1 to July 1 through Montgomery County, and they're closed off. They're out of money. They're done administering their money for 2023. 2024 funds will become available July 5th. You can go on ARC Respite Montgomery County website, and this phone number here, 301-984-5777, is a number that you can call for more information today, tomorrow, during normal business hours. You cannot use a non-accredited home care company. So there are many home care companies in Montgomery County that are, you must be accredited and approved and belong to the consortium that ARC Respite manages. That's it. No catches. The only disqualifier for ARC Respite to get some additional support to help you care for your loved one while you're aging in place is that you cannot be on any other Montgomery County support program like Medicaid, not Medicare, Medicaid, or if you are receiving a veteran's benefit that may disqualify you. Call them and ask them. I do not administer this program. It's just a great benefit that anybody caring for anybody in Montgomery County that's 60 plus, I hope will take advantage of. The other incredible resources I found are ones that are at everybody's fingertips, which is two simple things: YouTube and WikiHow. YouTube is a video sharing platform, and you probably have seen lots of silly YouTube movies and videos on there, but often, you know, my dad, I don't know how to operate a Hoyer lift. I needed to learn how to operate a Hoyer lift, which will get bedridden people out of bed. I just went to WikiHow or YouTube for a video and said, how do I use a Hoyer lift? They sent Joe home from the hospital with a catheter. Well, I don't know what to do with that. You know, so I just YouTube, how do you empty a catheter bag? You know, there's kind of nothing sacred anymore when you're caring for a loved one, and you know, people come home with the hospital with all kinds of instructions, none of which I could remember, probably because I didn't have any sleep, or I just simply didn't remember it. I wanted somebody to show me first. So I found YouTube is free. WikiHow.com is free. You just put either one in a search engine and you can find literally anything. You know, how to walk a dog, how to, any physical ailment you can think of. We often show many of our caregivers YouTube videos for nursing to know how to do whatever it is they need to do. It's an excellent resource. It's free. Everybody, excuse me, has access to it. You can also, excuse me, watch movies. You can, you know, if you don't have Netflix or anything like that, you can watch movies on YouTube. And a no ad YouTube is $11.99. It's just amazing the capabilities of so many of these products out there. Last but not least is please try to keep a sense of humor when you're caring for, you know, my parents, my husband. I found it to be a labor of love. I found it to be emotionally and physically exhausting and draining, and also extremely gratifying. And I'm privileged, I think, that I had an opportunity to care for my mother and my father. I was a very terrible, rotten teenager. And for me, it was an opportunity to give back to them for the sleepless nights I caused them. They certainly caused me a few sleepless nights, but you know, it was great to be such an intimate part of their life, their last days of their lives. So I've put my phone number here. This is my cell phone number, 873-5506. I'm happy to receive your calls if I was unclear about something, or you just want to know more information about any of the products I've spoken about. I've cut this down in the interest of time. I used many products, technology products, to sort of help support my caregiving. And many of them were just trial and error. Many of them I learned by watching Zooms like you're watching right now. And that's pretty much my story. I'm sticking to it. So thank you all for listening. I don't know if you want to open up unmute people so that they can ask questions. Let me see. I see a question in the chat. Oh, that just says, thank you for sharing.
It's just a thank you.
Okay.
If anyone has questions, they can either put it in the chat or unmute yourself and ask for a couple more minutes.
Let me see if I can stop this. See who's out there.
Someone asked, do you need a relatively new Alexa to take advantage of the things you mentioned?
No. They're constantly updated in the cloud, and the differences that you see are basically speakers. You know, the tall ones have big speakers in them, but even if it's 5 years old, it should be able to do anything that a new one does.
Did you ever get any resistance to any of the tracking devices from your?
Absolutely. Positively hated them all. You know, once he fell a few times, he became less resistant. That's why I like the tracking soles. He didn't even really know that they were in his shoes. Those are a little bit sneakier. The Apple Watch was a harder product because it needs to be recharged. And he didn't remember to recharge it. So that, you know, everything has a little bit of a catch to it.
Someone's asking if they can download the slides. I'm sure we can arrange for that.
Yeah, I can send it to Jennifer. I'll send it to her after the presentation.
Okay, I think we'll wrap up then. Thank you so much, Kathleen, and to everyone for joining Chevy Chase at Home today for our speaker series. I invite you all to explore other programming listed on our website and to consider joining your local village as a member or volunteer. Thanks again, and I hope everyone has a great rest of the day.